And it looks like we're recording on that one. Let me get this guy set up. And if there's anything you want me to edit out of it, if you decide you want to say something different, just let me know and I can do that at home. So, alrighty. So, if you want to start just telling us your name and some general info about yourself, like what you do, stuff that you enjoy, that'd be good.
My name is Kara Elias, and I work as a psychiatric social worker for community mental health in Oakland County, Michigan. Some of my things that I'm passionate about, of course, are helping people, trying to change the world. I'm a strong LGBT ally and advocate. Things that I love to do is photography. I'm also a professional photographer. I like to specialize in wildlife photography. I spend a lot of time out in the woods around wild animals, and that's what kind of sets me back to normal when I'm all stressed out. So that's my love.
Okay, so if you could explain to us and our audience, how did you personally find out that you were intersex? And explain, we know that there are different versions of intersex, so if you could explain exactly how that applies to you, that would be great.
Well, first I'll start off with kind of giving a general definition of what intersex is. Intersex is a condition that you're born with. You have it as a developing baby, in where your sexual or reproductive system isn't standard for male or female. There's a lot of varieties of intersex. For instance, a baby may be born with deformed genitals to where the doctor can't visually look and say, hey, that's a boy or that's a girl. That's called ambiguous genitalia. Another form, you could have kind of a hodgepodge of some male reproductive organs, some female reproductive organs, and then you could have like what I have, where I have male XY chromosomes, but you can have female genitalia. That's called androgen sensitivity syndrome. And there's a bunch of other ones, syndromes too, that affect chromosomes and various things. So it's like a wide gamut. Right now we're using the word intersex. The old word was hermaphrodite. There's a newer word, the abbreviation is DSD, disorders of sexual development. And personally I don't like that one too much, but I like hermaphrodite, but that's kind of old school.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Why was there a change between like going from hermaphrodite to intersex? Like, do you know why that was?
Just more or less a new and improved thing. In the medical community, they like to do stuff like that. Let's take manic depression. Now it's called bipolar disorder.
Got it.
So it's kind of like just a new and improved name. And
got it. Okay. I just
Yeah.
That was just a curiosity of mine.
Right.
So did you find out like at birth that you were intersex, or was it something that happened later on in life for you?
No, actually, it wasn't until about 10 years ago. No, more like 12 or 13 years ago now. I remember as a baby, I was right around 2 years old. I had genital surgery. Never knew why or anything like that. Never really cared as a baby to know why. But with me, my family raised me as male. And the distinguishing thing with me was I actually felt like it was female. I never really understood it. One thing that I learned early on as a young child, I never could express those feelings because of all the ridicule from the other kids, family. I'm very involved in church and ministry and that, and coming from a very fundamentalist, conservative Christian background, that was kind of a no-no. So I grew up with a lot of self-hatred. I was very self-destructive and everything with it. But kind of fast forwarding to about 12 or 13 years ago, that's when I found out I have androgen insensitivity syndrome. See, growing up, the older I became, I had a lot of very bizarre medical conditions. It got to the point where I was having seizures and an almost non-existent immune system. Plus, one of the really wild things was my body would twist me up like this. I was like literally twisted like a pretzel. And doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. At first, I was misdiagnosed 3 times with multiple sclerosis. And when the doctors did testing, they never could find any lesions on the brain or anything to indicate that there was anything wrong with me. And, so it was really discouraging not knowing why I'm disabled. So finally, when they couldn't find anything wrong with me, they said it was all in my head. And they set me on some heavy-duty psych meds for about 10 years and turned me into literally a drooling zombie. And fortunately, I found a real doctor who said, look, mental illness doesn't do this to a person. He goes, I don't know what you have, but this is a physical thing. Took me off all the meds, and I regained my mind. But one of the first indications, when the doctors were still trying to figure out what was going on with me and stuck me on all the funky meds, they did blood work up on me, and we found out that my body produced the female hormone estrogen at normal genetic female levels. And the doctor said, look, no male can produce estrogen like that. He asked me, where are you getting your estrogen from? At the time, I didn't even know you could buy estrogen. And, I kept telling him, I'm swearing up and down, I'm not taking anything. Well, because I had confided in him that I really felt like I was a girl, he thought I was a transsexual, wanting to transition to become a girl, and was taking estrogen and not telling him where I was getting it from. He said, if you're going to sit there and look me straight in the eye and lie to me, I can't see you as a patient. And he dropped me.
Wow.
So for the next 10 years, the first medical clue we had, just was lying dormant. And it was just so frustrating because nobody was listening to me. Basically, what happened is we found out later on that the testosterone in my body was what was poisoning me. Because there were times I would go into complete remission and be completely well, and other times a partial remission. Turns out when the testosterone was the dominant hormone in my body, I was really sick and I was dying. When the estrogen was the dominant hormone, then I was completely well. So what we wound up doing is we put me on hormone replacement therapy to keep the estrogen level up and something to keep the testosterone level down. Within 40 minutes of taking the first dose of medicine, I got to throw away my cane. I had to use a cane to walk on days I even could walk. My body straightened out. I had no more seizures. Everything was good. And then, so I was diagnosed with an intersex condition, but it wasn't until a little bit later on that we actually figured out it was androgen insensitivity syndrome. Now there's 2 types. There's complete androgen insensitivity syndrome, in which what happens to the developing fetus, they have XY male chromosomes, and but the problem is their androgen receptors can't read the coding of the testosterone. So they grow a complete vagina, have a complete female body, and nobody knows anything, that there's anything wrong until, all their friends start having their periods and they're not getting it. Then you go to the doctor and they do an ultrasound, and then what they'll find is that where the ovaries should be, they have testicles, and there's no uterus. So basically, they are, it's male internally, but externally they're completely female. Now, someone like me with partial, partial doesn't sound as bad as complete of something, but that's kind of misleading. Because with partial, my body can read the coding of testosterone to a point. That's why I'm as large as I am. I also was born with growth hormone issues too, so that kind of played into this. When my voice is deep and everything, and why they decided to go the male route with me. But unfortunately, with not everyone with partial androgen and sensitivity syndrome, but someone like me, the symptoms didn't really come out until puberty, when the hormones are really starting to kick in. And that's why I became crippled, you know, had seizures, and it also gave me just about a non-existent immune system. But to kind of build on the question that you just asked me, you know, once I found out what was wrong with me, all of a sudden it was like, wow, vindication, you know, it was cool. You know, I had an answer as to why, you know, I felt like a girl, why all these weird things were happening to me, that it wasn't in my head, you know, but at the same time, it was like, oh crud, you know, I'm a girl. You know, it's like, what does this mean for me? I was married and everything. I knew, you know, that was going to be the end of my marriage. I could have lost my job. You know, I could have got kicked out of my church, which actually I got kicked out of 10 churches for being intersex. Yeah, just because people didn't understand, and a lot of people don't want to try to understand. You know, so it completely changed my life. I don't know if you've ever seen the original movie, The Matrix. Basically, I won't give it away in case anyone wants to see it. The storyline is about a guy who grows up thinking that there's something more out there than, you know, than what his reality is. And then he's given the opportunity to learn, you know, what truth is, and he chose to see what truth is. And it just totally blew his mind, because what he knew to be reality was so totally different, you know, from what the true reality was. Well, I kind of felt like Neo in the Matrix, the moment his eyes were open and he saw what the truth was. You know, it kind of hit me that hard. So I kind of like really identify with that movie, you know, on a lot of levels.
Right. You did mention that you had a reconstructive surgery when you were younger. Did your parents, were they somewhat aware of the condition, or why that surgery take place?
To the best of my knowledge, I think it was, you know, just a birth defect down there they were trying to correct.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it was anything hideous, like they were trying to do a sex change or,
Right.
you know, any kind of funky stuff that they do on a lot of intersex babies. I think there was, you know, some sort of problem that they
Okay.
were trying to fix.
So they were like under the impression that it was more of a birth defect rather than,
Mhm.
because I was thinking that they had known, you know, when you were a baby and like didn't tell your parents.